Minecraft boats are completely broken, and here's why. So recently, I was invited to a Minecraft YouTuber boat race called IBRI. It was a ton of fun, and my team did okay in these races. We won both of them, and I even managed to come third place in the second race. But as with any event, no matter how well put together it is, there's always going to be one or two problems here and there. And this is where the problem started. So one thing you should know about Minecraft boats is that if your boat bumps into the back of someone else's boat, you will come to a dead stop. It doesn't matter how fast you're going, you will lose all of your speed instantly, as if the person you crashed into was a wall. And just like that wall, the other person's boat is completely unfazed. You didn't leave a dent. This is bumping, and it might sound dumb and unfair, but at this point, it's just a part of boat racing, and people have learned to play with it. It punishes sloppy driving and poor spatial awareness, so you have to be very careful when you're overtaking someone. And during these races, people got bumped. A lot. Yeah. Obviously, not everyone is exactly the Ayrton Senna of Minecraft boat racing. It was all content creators with little to no boating experience, and everyone only got to practice the track for 3 hours before the race. So aside from constantly swerving off the track, they fell victim to a lot of bumps. But believe it or not, bumping wasn't actually the problem here. There was something else going on that made bumping way worse than it's supposed to be. So when I was streaming the race, some people in my live stream chat noticed this thing. What is that? Why is there a floating lightning rod following my boat at all times? And why does everyone else have a lightning rod in front of their boat? Some people in the chat guessed this correctly, but to put it simply, that's where your boat actually is. But what do I mean by that? Where the boat actually is? Their boat's right there. Well, no, they're not. And you can easily prove this with a pressure plate, a redstone lamp, and a friend. Some people might have a bit of trouble with that last one. Now look what happens when they drive over the pressure plate at speed. You see that? The pressure plate gets pressed down and powers the lamp way before the boat touches it. It's 30 meters away. But how? How can the boat trigger a pressure plate that it isn't touching? Well, normally you'd expect the hitbox to move exactly where the object moves, and for them to be perfectly in sync with each other. You know, like everything else in the game, but boats just aren't very smart like that. The boat's model and hitbox always lag half a second behind the boat's real position. They're basically ghosts. That's what the lightning rod is for. It's a server plugin that shows you where the boat is on the server, and all the big boat racing servers have this plugin, because it's kind of become a necessity. Without it, it's really difficult to tell what's going on. But you know what's not difficult? Subscribing. But if you want to go the extra mile, then me and Crafty now have plushies over on Makeship, and if you buy them together, then you'll get a discount. But they're available for a limited time only, and we need 200 orders to make it happen. So you've got to be quick before it's gone forever. So now we've established that everyone's boat appears to be somewhere it isn't, and this disparity between client and server is known as desync. Now, Minecraft isn't the only game that suffers from this problem. Basically every online game ever has some kind of desync issue because of shaky internet connections and high ping. But, you see, Minecraft isn't very smart. Even if you played on a LAN server with 0 ping, you would still get the same desync problems. Because, this is the best part, this behavior is hard-coded into Minecraft boats. That's right, boats are programmed this way. I have no idea why, but needless to say, this is a really big problem for boat racing. It has all sorts of glitchy side effects. So as I mentioned earlier, boats have 0.5 seconds of desync. It might not sound like much, and yeah, when you're moving slowly, you barely notice it. But when you're moving at top speed on blue ice, that 0.5 seconds becomes a really big gap. If you're both going fast enough, you can get bumped by someone when you're actually 30 meters behind them. Now, I'm no expert on physics, but it doesn't take a genius to know that's not how crashes work. Imagine you're driving down the road, the car in front of you stops at a red light, so you slam on the brakes. But before you can stop, you end up rear-ending them from 30 meters away. That's basically what's happening here with boats. You're crashing into thin air, but that's just the start of it. We haven't gotten to overtaking yet. Imagine you and another racer are battling it out. You both go around a corner, but you had the better line, so you exit the corner faster, and you successfully overtake them. So your position on the leaderboard should go up, right? No. You haven't actually overtaken them yet. Remember, the lightning rod is where the boats actually are, so to truly overtake someone, you really have to do it twice. First, you need to get past their boat, which you won't be rewarded for, and you risk getting bumped in the process, and then you need to get past their lightning rod, which you will pass straight through, even though that's where they really are. Only then will the overtake count. But if you don't manage to fully overtake them, then this puts you in a very sticky situation. You're now in between their boat and their lightning rod. The pro boat racers call this being in tandem. If you're moving faster than them, then no problem. You'll overtake them just fine. But if they're moving slightly faster than you, then bit by bit, their boat starts to catch up to you. Now you'd think that at some point they'll hit the back of your boat and get bumped off the track. But no, that's not what happens. When it collides with the back of your boat, they don't get bumped, because their lightning rod, their real position, is still in front of you. So from their point of view, you're not even on their screen. There's nothing for them to collide with. So back on your screen, their boat continues inching forwards, passing straight through yours, completely unfazed. And once their boat is fully in front of yours, you get bumped. Of course, it affects you, but it doesn't affect them. So if you find yourself in this very unfortunate position and you see that their boat is catching up to you, there's only one option. You have to move out their way and let them pass, even though they're really already in front of you. And if that person is lagging, then it's even worse, because their boat will keep freezing for a split second and then snapping back to where it's supposed to be. And while they're frozen, you can still bump into them. They basically become a static obstacle in the middle of the road. So having a dodgy internet connection like this can actually be an advantage. Yeah. Overtaking someone is way more complicated than it's supposed to be, and as you can imagine, this is an especially big problem on narrow tracks. But even on wide tracks, it can be a problem. When lots of people are bunched up together, it's really difficult to tell whose lightning rod is whose. It only shows where they are, not who they are, and what direction they're facing. So it's much harder to predict where they're going. We haven't even covered all the problems yet, but I think it should be pretty clear by now that boats are a broken, buggy mess, which is the result of some very questionable programming from Minecraft's early days. Now, if you're thinking about becoming a programmer yourself, then you can avoid making those kinds of mistakes by learning how to program with the sponsor of this video, boot.dev. Boot.dev is an online learning platform that teaches you all about back-end development in the programming languages Python and Go, but they do things very differently to how schools teach it. You see, programming is a very useful and high-paying skill to have, but the main thing that stops people from learning it is that they find it boring. So they quit before they can even build a basic understanding of it. The only way you can properly learn it is to write lots and lots of code. So to make sure you're not bored, boot.dev takes programming and turns the learning process into a game with levels, achievements, quests, and rewards, all to take you from a complete beginner to an advanced back-end web developer. It took me just 30 minutes to get through the basics of Python, and if you ever get stuck, they have a dedicated Discord community of over 25,000 people who can help you out, and you'll also find people there who are learning alongside you. And if you use my code PURPLES at checkout, then you can get 25% off your entire first year if you choose the annual plan. Just visit boot.dev or click the link in the description. But going back to Minecraft boats, it's kind of crazy to think just how much of a problem a simple half-second delay can be. When you're moving at over 70 blocks per second, just half a second is an eternity. Okay, so Mojang just needs to remove the half-second delay from boats, and then problem solved, right? if only it was that simple. After the first IBRI event, I had an idea for a mod that could fix this desync issue once and for all. So I talked to a modder called 2Know2Name, who is the guy who maintains the lithium mod. But he also has another modding project called Mended Minecarts, because of course, minecarts have the same desync problem as boats. And since 2Know had done this for minecarts, I asked him if he could do the same for boats. So he did. In less than 2 hours. So then me and my teammate Sloime tested the mod out, and it still wasn't fixed. Now, it was definitely an improvement, but for some reason, there was still some desync left that the mod couldn't get rid of. And that's because there's another part to this problem that I didn't mention earlier. Minecraft runs at 20 ticks per second. That's how it controls everything that happens in the game. So your boat isn't really moving smoothly like this. That's just an animation, so it looks nice. The boat is actually moving like this, from point to point. And that's also why the lightning rod looks so jittery, because that's how the boat actually moves. At least, it's supposed to. On your Minecraft client, that is what's happening. It's sending your boat's speed, position, and direction to the server 20 times per second. But this is the important part. The server only sends information back to you every 3 ticks. So you are constantly getting outdated information on where the other boats are. And if we remove all the smoothing from the boat animation, we can see what that looks like. This is how the other players on the server are actually moving. Your own boat still moves normally because it's your boat on your computer, but everyone else moves like this. Their boat moves, then stays in the same place for 3 ticks, then moves again, and repeats. This effectively adds an additional 0.15 seconds of desync, which again doesn't sound like much, but at high speeds it still makes a big difference. And if you thought boats were broken just from that, well, it doesn't end there. They have other problems that people in the event didn't even realize were there. Let's say you're driving down a diagonal straight, and you're hugging the wall to get the best possible line through the next corner. You carefully tap A and D to make small corrections so you don't crash into the wall, then suddenly, out of nowhere, you crash into the wall anyway. But you swear you didn't touch it, so you clip it and rewatch the footage, and it clearly shows that you didn't touch the wall. So what the heck is going on? Well, don't worry, you're not going insane. This phenomenon has a name. Wall priority. So remember how I mentioned earlier that Minecraft boats move like this? Well, there's actually a bit more to it than that. On that diagonal straight we were on, you'd think that your boat moves like this, a clean diagonal line connecting all the points. Except that's not what's really happening. To make that diagonal line, the game actually moves you in a zigzag pattern. Every tick, the game moves you in 2 steps. First, it moves you in the direction you're moving fastest, then it turns 90 degrees and moves you in the other direction. Now this next bit is the important part. When you're tapping A and D to keep your boat straight, you'll sometimes end up steering a bit towards the wall. And when you do this, there's a brief moment where your fastest direction of travel isn't going down the straight, but instead goes towards the wall. So that zigzag pattern flips around like this, and that 90-degree turn now happens inside the wall. Now, it shouldn't make a difference, because the next point ends up in the same place regardless, but Minecraft is Minecraft, so of course, it treats this as you crashing into the wall. And this doesn't just happen on straights, it happens on corners too. But surely though, that's gotta be it, right? Boats couldn't possibly get more broken than that. Pfft, no? What, you thought we were done? Of course not. Boats still have more jank to give. But instead of me explaining it, I'm just gonna show you this clip from my friend Captain CRAFTY'S.
Just don't die at the start. Just don't die at the start. Otherwise, my fellow boat racers. No!
Yeah. So if you're wondering what the hell just happened, this is boat lag. When someone else's boat moves inside your boat on the server side, your boat has an existential crisis and can't decide where it's supposed to be. So it flails around randomly until your boats are no longer overlapping. Most of the time it ends with someone getting bumped. This was such a big problem in pro boat races, people had to avoid driving the innermost line around the first corner, because that's when the race is at its most crowded, and you are very likely to get boat lagged off the face of the earth. But luckily, this problem already has a solution. A player called Makuzan, who is the owner of the Boat Labs server, made a plugin that fixes boat lag entirely, without changing any vanilla boat behavior, and without anyone needing to install mods of their own. And this plugin is the reason why you haven't seen boat lag happening in any of the other examples. So, in the IBRI races, we didn't have to deal with boat lag. We only had to deal with, you know, the rest of the issues. Now, some people watching might be thinking, this doesn't matter. Minecraft was never intended to be a racing game, so stop complaining. Well, that's a valid point, but at the same time, I don't see any benefit to boats being programmed like this. Minecraft has a lot of useful bugs, but this is not one of them. So, for the foreseeable future, boats will likely remain as one of the glitchiest things in all of Minecraft.